Cool. Welcome everyone to week 3 of Movement Building from Home. This week we're discussing personal ecology, also known as self-care. So we are convening these calls in response to the COVID-19 crisis. So we want to bring all of you together for some peer-to-peer learning about sustaining our activism and movement building work during these uncertain times. The calls will focus on online meetings, which is week 1, practicing online community care, which was week 2 last week, self-care, which is this week, and then finally community management next week. So my name's Abby. I'm one of the organizers. I'm joined by Chad. Wave there. And since we're a small group, actually I'll toss it to Chad for CPG first.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just a quick reminder of our community participation guidelines, noting that we are here to be respectful, honest, inclusive, accommodating, appreciative, and open to learning from everyone else here in the community. And that we do not attack, demean, disrupt, harass, threaten others, or encourage such behavior. If you're curious about the full Mozilla Community Participation Guidelines, you can find those around line 61 or the middle of page 2. And should you wish to report an issue or have something related to the CPG to discuss, you can email either Abby or myself. And because we're a small group today, I think Abby's going to lead us through some introductions before we get started.
Yeah, so I thought we'd just go in the order of the roll call. You could just say a little bit about yourself and maybe even verbalize some of what you wrote in the check-in. Chad and I have already gone. But Chad, did you want to say a little bit about how you're doing today?
Yeah, a little anxious today, long day of meetings, a little worn out, but always super grateful to be on these calls and thinking about how to take everything I'm learning from them forward into the next pieces of work. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, same here. This is the 3rd workshop that Chad and I are co-facilitating together today. May have been a bad idea on our part for scheduling. So yeah, a little bit of Zoom zombie going on. But Sharon? Sharon? How do you pronounce your name?
Yeah, no, Sharon is good. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon. I'm from London in the UK. I'm officially a Zoom zombie. Yeah, I think I've been on 3 calls and co-facilitated 1 webinar today before this. It's like 6 p.m. For us at the moment. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm an educator, work with young people and adults who work with young people. So I've kind of lost a lot of my work at the moment and managed to fill my time up and still be as busy. I'm not sure how. So I'm just observing that need for busyness. So really interested in, exploring self-care today and happy to be here.
Thanks, Sharon. Angela?
Hi, everyone. My name's Angela. I'm based in Chicago, Illinois. I work at the University of Chicago. But in my free time, I also organize Our Lady Chicago, which is a group of sort of women and gender minorities who use the programming language R. And it also involved in the Carpentries community, which is an educational sort of computational teaching group. I think I've been doing pretty well. So it's noon here for me. So I'm doing this over my lunch break. Been really thinking a lot about sort of people who are maybe toxic and people who are uplifting and sort of balancing out that. I recently was on a project where someone who sort of disagreed with the inclusive way I did things sort of came back and was like, hey, like, why are you doing things this way? And it's been sort of hard working through that. So this has been very timely. But I spent a lot of time earlier today sort of building my reservoir by talking to folks who are in my community and really supportive of the work. So that's been awesome. And so the sense of progress has been really cool. Overall, doing pretty well.
So thanks, Angela. And I like that phrase, building my reservoir. I think it'll relate to a lot of what we talk about today. Next is Nicole. You want to say hi to us?
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm also in London, so it's the end of my working day and I'm a bit wiped out, but just hoping to listen and absorb. I'm part of, I just changed jobs a couple of months ago, so I only got a month in before we all went into lockdown. But it's a lot of community building. We have a huge pool of volunteers, volunteer data scientists that we work with and so I'm very interested in helping and getting stuck in with that community as much as possible, and also self-care during this pandemic.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Next we have Lewis. Lewis, there you go.
Okay, hi everyone.
Hi.
So my name is Lewis. This is my first time in this meeting. I did, okay, we've been at home, we've been on lockdown for something like a month now, and it was only when I had started my job, but we got laid off because of the virus thing. But in between here, we've been engaging with local tech communities to run small meetings and meetups online via Zoom.
Yeah, thanks so much, Lewis. We're glad you were able to join us. Chana.
All right.
There you go. Hi.
Somehow I lost you, but now you're back. I'm Chana, and I'm in the Bay Area. I work at the Haas Leadership Initiatives and do capacity building, leadership development, and really just kind of any kind of support that nonprofits need in these days, especially harder hit ones and people on the ground that are facing lots of loss and change. And I am a touchy-feely person and a hugger, and I like to be in space with people, and I just didn't really realize how much until we're in whatever week this is. And it's just getting harder and harder for me to feel connected in the ways that I did, and trying to find other ways to do that. But yesterday I took a long walk and just called a bunch of people that I haven't talked to in a while, and that really helped to reconnect in that way. And FaceTime instead of Zoom, like it made a difference that it wasn't Zoom. I don't know why. So I'm glad to be here, and appreciate that you're doing this work and helping us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jana. Dave, you're up next.
Hi there. I'm Dave. I'm up at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, and in my normal life, I'm a researcher at the university, but I'm involved occasionally in the in sort of queer activist spaces and that kind of thing as well. And basically, I've been enjoying. So I wasn't able to come to the first session, but I joined last week, and I'm really enjoying this series as a way to basically build skills so that I can actually contribute to organizing and that, because that's something that I want more of in my life. But I know that I need, I need to be able to think about it well, and have good tools both for caring for others and caring for myself in order to do a good job. So I like Chena, I've also been feeling really disconnected from people. That like seeing people's faces, talking to them is not the same. And it took a while for me to be able to admit that too. So it's nice to participate in things like this as well, but I'll look forward to hugging everyone when this is over.
Me too, Dave. Me too. Thanks, Dave. Up next, Christina.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Sorry to be late. I was taking some personal self-care to get myself lunch, because I'm like, oh yeah, right, food. So I work for the National Writing Project. We're a US-based teacher organization, nonprofit. And we have writing project sites all over the country. Chad is a colleague of mine through the writing project, and we're networked with thousands of teachers across the country. So I do a lot of this. I have done a lot of this for many years. And so in some ways, this is like, it's familiar, But I mean, both over time, I've learned a lot from Mozilla, and like, what can I learn from organizers? What can I learn from artists? What can I learn from activists? It's something I try to like always be paying attention to. And I've learned a lot from Mozilla, watching Mozilla work internationally. So I really appreciate that, and the sort of localization of stuff. I also, you know, what is different is my level of anxiety when I do see people. And I, you know, like I went shopping yesterday and then I come back a total wreck. And then I go, you know, visit my dad and I'm like, oh, did I touch stuff too much? Did I, you know, or I visit him at a distance, but still it's like, so like I know that this level is just like, I'm carrying around with me all the time. And so anyway, being sort of more conscious of what's true right now, I feel like is part of what I'm looking for, and why I appreciate the sort of making visible processes and why we're doing certain things. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. Yeah, that was a great share. And then to wrap us up, Callan.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, great. I'm on my phone, so I always get a little worried. So hi, I'm Callan, she, her pronouns. I'm a college librarian in the Boston area, and I work on kind of a growing number of different efforts that I would say maybe the distribution of those is probably the biggest challenge right now, because I operate in a very wide-ranging number of different professional units, right? So there's some that are more conventional and some that are more radical, and there's kind of a lot of code switching that has to go on between those various groups. So that's been challenging, maybe a little bit easier in the new online mediated version of doing work, but some of the issues I'm having with one of my groups is that for about 10 years, there was a mailing list that people depended upon for communication there. And we heard from the kind of national organizers of this unit, this organization, that they were going to take the email list down. So we're trying to get everybody on Slack, but that worked in about 25% of the cases, and about 75%. There are people who either have not joined at all or are just kind of lurking or not participating. So one of the big things I'm trying to overcome right now is that sort of like, how do I get that? There's like the 25% of people who are engaged, and that 75% of people who are just kind of hanging out on the sidelines. So that's something I've been thinking about quite a lot.
Nice. Thanks so much, Kellen. And we'll be thinking a little bit about that more next week, actually. This week is a lot more self-care. But thanks everyone for introducing yourselves. Quick overview of the goals for the call. We do want to use this time to check in with each other and listen to each other. We also want to understand how personal ecology helps us remain engaged with our work. And then finally, we want to share needs and suggestions for self-care as part of our work to sustain communities. So I'm really glad we were small enough to be able to like introduce ourselves. We haven't been able to do that in these calls yet, but I'll pass it off to Chad.
Thank you. Yeah, and we have adjusted some timings just a little bit to make sure we can address each section as well. But we're going to start off here now with some silent documenting around personal ecology and this definition of it. Personal ecology meaning to maintain balance, pacing, and efficiency to sustain our energy over a lifetime. And this is something that Abby and I borrowed from the Rockwood Leadership Institute. It's Art of Leadership course. You've probably heard us mention it before, you know, some foundational training for us. But we'd like you to take maybe about 5 minutes to pick and choose from the prompts below. No worries about answering all of them, no pressure, no expectation. Just pick the ones that really resonate with you. And maybe, you know, share a few things and then do that scan of what others have shared, +1 things to affirm them, ask those kind questions to kind of begin and continue conversations about folks' responses. But here are the prompts. You know, what are some common things that cause us not to be centered or to be out of balance, to be stressed out from the before times as well as the pandemic? What comes to mind for you when you hear the phrase personal ecology, or what stands out for you in the definition that we shared? If you feel comfortable sharing, you could talk a little bit about your experiences of burnout. What did you feel? And more importantly, or not necessarily more importantly, but as importantly, what helped you recover? And then what do you think you would need to continue sustaining yourself and your activism, your organizing for another 10 weeks or 10 months or 10 years? You can jump around, you can begin wherever you want. But we'll take about 5 minutes to share on +1 and type those kind of questions. And you can ask, you can contribute out loud and we'll take notes if you'd rather. And then 5 minutes for discussion. Any questions? All right, I'll start my timer. Lots of typing still going on. We're about halfway through. If you have kind of wrapped up sharing your initial thoughts, great time to start scanning and +1ing, asking those kind of questions. I'll check in again in just a few minutes. All right, a few folks continuing to finish up thoughts here, others continuing to +1. But in the interest of getting to a few other parts of the call, including breakout rooms where we'll come back to some of these ideas, is there anything anyone would like to surface or lift up right now or ask a question about?
There's a lot about schedules in this call compared to other calls. It's overscheduling, which might be also because of the later day.
Yeah, I feel like that's akin to saying yes to perhaps too many things that did come up on the other calls, right?
That's true, yeah.
That there could be a connection there or not. Yeah, the idea of just like trying to pack in so much when maybe stretching things out right now is something that needed. Systems thinking came up again. That was very cool. There was an earlier call where I guess the comparable thing was talking about the energy costs of things, like as in a definite ecological system there. And yes, thinking about months and weeks and years is it's difficult, but also can help us be strategic here. I'll just say thank you again for sharing your experiences with burnout here. This passage about the longevity of the situation and thinking through that, and thinking about structures that are supportive and accessible, not necessarily rigid. It seems like something super important. I hope we come back to in our breakouts as well. But I'll just say thank you. And if anybody else wants to mention any, maybe one thing before we go on, or Abby, if you have any observations.
No, I think there's a lot of insight here. And thanks so much for sharing. I know, especially sharing your experience with burnout. Sometimes we don't learn to prioritize self-care until we've actually experienced when it's gone poorly. So just thanks for sharing that. I know it's not always easy.
And to help us maybe calibrate towards that end of noticing, Abby, you want to take us into the self-assessment exercise?
Yeah. Yeah, and we wanted to give you time to do the self-assessment just because what balance looks like for you right now, or what kind of support you need now, is probably different than it was 2 months ago, and it may be different in the next few weeks. So we wanted to give you time to sort of think through a few prompts that we use as a self-assessment around personal ecology. So we're going to do that. So if you scroll down before, there's a self-assessment section, and there's a bunch of prompts with things like, I have time to play in ways that refresh and renew me, or I feel energized and ready to go at the start of my new day, start of the day. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you all just to copy these prompts and put them somewhere private where other people can't share. And then for each of these, you can score them from 1 to 5. So 1 would be, this is never true for me. And then 5 is, I always feel this. This is always true for me. So we'll give you 10 minutes to go through this. If you finish before that's up, you can also make a list for yourself, the things you want to continue based on your scores, the things you want to improve or increase, or the things you want to try to work towards. So we'll give you 10 minutes. Feel free to face mute and mute while you do this. And I'll check in after 5 minutes just to see how people are doing, if you need more time or not. And your 10 minutes starts now. We're about halfway through. I know this can be quite introspective, so it's good if you need more time to sort of sit and think with this, especially for the last part with the list for yourself. But if you're done, could you let me know in the chat, just so I get an idea of where we're all at? But you have a few more minutes. All right, I'll ask you to start wrapping up now. And I'll just share the first time I did the self-assessment. I got a pretty high score and I was like a little bit smug about it. It's like, oh, I'm so good at this being balanced. And then the second time I took it, it was like right before the Mozilla Festival. And my score was way lower. So just knowing that like your score can change over time and knowing that like it's good to check in with yourself. So please feel free to save these questions and use that to check in down the road. But with that, I think I'll pass it off to Chad now.
Great.
And I hope you're all done, the self-assessment, but Chad's just gonna share a few big ideas with us.
Yeah, you finished it well. I'm talking big ideas as well. So we'll talk now a little bit about how to practice personal ecology, with the usual caveat that we're just calling it how to practice personal ecology because we anticipate, a broad shared conversation amongst all of us, many different approaches, not that we're experts or authorities. And as with community care, there's a rich history here in radical politics and movements founded by women of color. So if this is something that might be new to you or something you want to explore more deeply, there's certainly resources for that available outside the confines of this call. The big idea here is another quote from Rockwood, from Akaya Winwood, who was one of our trainers. She thought it was so simple and powerful. You can't sustain a movement if you don't sustain yourself. I think that idea is really integral to the work right now. I think about the before times, and sometimes, there's a tendency to shortcut this when things are on a roll or everything seems to be going good. But This is always important. It's very, very important right now. Some folks talk about this as well-being or self-care. I think personal ecology might be a little more holistic than that, but it requires intent and caring and frequent self-assessment and support from others. So this is something where, if you're trying something new and you're curious about if it's making an impact in ways that others can see as well, you might, ask a coach or a mentor or sponsor. You might ask a family member, a friend, a trusted community member. I was feeling this way. I've made some of these adjustments. Does it feel like I'm more present? Does it feel like I'm kinder? Does it feel like I am, better able to manage reactions? Something like that you could certainly do and involve others in supporting you. It's both strategic and just. I say strategic because, part of this work is thinking about how to plan for it and accommodate it and work it into not only your own life, but maybe the life of your community or your organization or workplace. And it's when we start doing that, I think that personal ecology becomes more and more just, because we are trying to systematize and institutionalize a culture that allows personal ecology for everyone. It can be a very privileged practice in some places, but I think part of this work is moving from getting people who can practice it to creating opportunities for everyone to practice it, especially folks who are often maybe excluded from those opportunities, right? This can be a structured process. I think the more structure we bring to it, the better able we are to habituate ourselves, to make it a habit to check in and to assess. So it's not like, as someone said above, not looking for a rigid structure here, but for a consistent way to do this process of checking in and renegotiating what it is we need. I think of this as less of an escape and more of a restoration. As a younger person, I had a much more shallow understanding of self-care or personal ecology. Oh, rough day. I'm going to go, drink this. I'm going to go eat this. I'm going to go play this game. I'm going to go see this movie. Now I try to think of it much more holistically. And it's not just the balance of life and work, but the nature of each. Am I doing work that is part of my personal ecology? And again, I feel that's to be able to say yes for me is very much an element of privilege. But then how do we extend that to others so that the work we're doing is part of that fulfilling personal ecology? It's not something we should overlook. Some dimensions here we think about are allowing ourselves joy, allowing ourselves the feelings, reactions, and mistakes we have, acknowledging our challenges, acknowledging our feelings. It's not a way to get rid of those things, but to be there in the moment with them, let them pass if we can, or act in response to them if that's better. It's a way to share power and use community care to make sure others can practice self-care and personal ecology. It's checking in frequently enough to know when we need restoration, when we need to stop before burnout. It's about creating the processes, relationships, and structures that help with these check-ins. It is renegotiation. It's not a one-time negotiation. It is frequent renegotiation of what's happening with us. And it's modeling personal ecology for others and then trying to ensure that they can practice it as well and making it cultural and systemic, not personal and idiosyncratic as an approach. The big question is just, how can we help each other work towards more sustainable personal ecology? And how can we help others do the same? And to explore that further, Abby's going to take us into breakout rooms.
All right. So we're going to be sending you to breakout rooms of, sorry, I'm doing math in my head, 4 people each, I guess. And we do ask you to take this time to listen to each other and thank each other. Do avoid judgment and solutioneering. Be kind to one another. And we understand that this is a sensitive topic, especially things around burnout. So only share what you're comfortable with sharing. If you need any help, there's an ask for help button at the bottom of the screen that will call either Chad or myself, and we'll come and join you. So at the beginning, introduce yourselves to each other. I know we already did introductions at the beginning, so hopefully they can be a bit shorter here. And we have 3 prompts for the discussion. So first is describe what your balance looks like now, maybe even share some of your self-assessment. Describe the balance you want in your life. What would your ideal self-assessment look like? And then finally, what's one thing you want to bring to your community about personal ecology? That can either be something you're doing for yourself or something you're going to help others do. So does everyone understand the prompts? Cool. So I'm going to have Chad send you to breakout rooms for 10 minutes.
Yep, I'm going to open the rooms, pause the recording. And we're going to move from the breakout rooms to the 8th agenda item at the top of page 7 called One Powerful Next Step. So after our silent documenting and our sharing with each other in the breakout rooms, very curious about, what is a next step you want to take for your personal ecology or for extending the power and privilege of personal ecology in your community. So something you might take from this call, either with you or to your community, what might that be? If you can share one most powerful next step you'd like to take in the next 5 minutes or so, that'd be great. And then with any extra time, +1 to affirm others. And again, ask those kind of kind questions that help people unpack their ideas a little bit more. And I will mute myself and put the timer on. Another minute or so left here. Looks like a lot of thoughts have been shared. If you have anything else to +1 or ask about, now's the time. Now's also if you have something you'd like to surface or share out loud, something you noticed, go ahead and do that now before we go on to closing circle. Anything you'd like to share?
You do have a question in the chat.
Oh, okay, good. What is it?
How does one go about creating processes, relationships, and structures that help you check in with yourself? Any good resources to start?
Well, down below, there are indeed some resources, including a kind of like a very chat-inflected, what's billed as a Mozilla personal ecology kit that will just kind of help you think through some things maybe you'd like to bring from work into life, life into work, distractions that are helpful, distractions that are not helpful. That's something to work through. I think just starting even with something even more simple, like your self-assessment results earlier, and picking like the one thing, I'm going to continue this no matter what, as much as I can. The one thing I'm going to improve at, the one thing I'm going to start, that also might be manageable. Like 3 concrete things, one of which is just continuing, one of which is just kind of nudging along, and one of which might be a challenge to start. That might be good. If that feels manageable, start there. If that doesn't feel manageable, start with the thing that you want to be sure to continue, perhaps.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are many other resources
Yes.
that this group knows about. So feel free to add that to our resource list down below. One thing I wanted to lift up from this list of one powerful next step was, yeah, how some people are really exploring the motivations behind the things that they're doing and not just the actions. So shifting self-worth is a big one. I know for me, I tend to say yes to everything because I want people to like me. So then even knowing that that's why I say yes and being able to shift that was made a huge difference in my life. And Chad's discussing the 3 teens in his house, which is a lot, Chad. I feel for you.
It would be fine if they didn't like completely reverse their sleep schedules right now. That's what I'm saying.
Oh man. All right, so for our final 3 minutes, it's okay if I move to closing circle, Chad?
Yes, please take us away, Abby.
Cool. So first reminder, please fill out this survey we have linked here. Help us make week 4 the best call yet. We actually reworked this schedule quite a lot based on feedback from previous weeks and feedback specifically from this cohort. So if you have anything specific you want us to talk about or you want us to do, please let us know in the form. And if you have any reminders for this group, feel free to add them under reminders. The shares and shoutouts, a nice place to thank someone from your community maybe that's really helping you lift up your self-care and your personal ecology, or even thanking people from your breakout room, which is happening a lot there, which is nice to see. If you have any requests for peer assists, things like, do you know any good image editors is something that came up in another call, or even things that are completely unrelated. Feel free to ask that here, or if you have an ask specific to self-care, we also really welcome that. You can put that in our peer assist section. Here are the resources that Chad was talking about. I'll highlight this one that Chad mentioned, the Personal Ecology Self-Assessment Kit, if you want something a bit more detailed than just the list of questions. That's a nice one to look at. I also really like this infographic because I'm a visual learner. I'm highlighting there, self-care and sustaining activism. And if you have more, please add them below. We're eager to hear your resources. 5 ways to stay involved. Do join us on the MozFest Slack. That is a great place to ask these questions in between the calls, or ask things like, do you know any good image editors? People there will be happy to answer you. And then finally, feedback again. Please take a moment to fill out that survey. We want to make week 4 the best yet. What can we do to make this really worth your while? Yeah, let us know. So we'll see you in 1 week for community management. And Chad, any final words?
Continued gratitude and thanks for all of you for being here and for sharing so generously.
Really nice conversation today.
Yeah.
Awesome. Everyone has to jump to another Zoom call, but we'll
Thanks,
stick around
everyone.
for a bit if you want to chat, but we'll stop the recording now and say bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.